Hi, this is Russell Oakes. I'm the Customer Services Manager at Box Telematics, and I'm going to take you through some of the software aspects of the SPOTON tracking software. The section we're going to look at the moment is the companies and users section of admin. So if you're watching the last video, this is just under the admin section, from coming away from vehicles to admin, and then companies and users on the left hand side. To begin with, the main thing, if we take you through these one by one, you've got display groups. Now in the previous video we were talking about schedule reporting, things like that, and you would have noticed that now and again I had to click on display groups to get the report to run. Display groups give you the ability to group vehicles and users together. So if you've got one particular vehicle which only one person should see, you can create a login for that person, assign them to the vehicle using display groups, and then when they log in they can only see that vehicle. Everyone else can see all the other vehicles, but just that one person would only be able to see that vehicle, or any ones you specify that they should be able to see. So what you can see here is we've got the box demo display group at the moment. At the moment that contains 4 users, which is contacts, 6 assets, which would be 6 vehicles, and then geofences. So if I was to right click, add a new group underneath box demo, which we'll call test. What you can then do is go across, and you can select who needs to be within that group. So when they log in, who's going to be only seeing that group. So we can say Billy Bragg is, and then we can go next again, and if we untick that, the reason I needed to untick that was because all of the vehicles are currently already associated with other groups. If there's anywhere it's not associated with a group, it would have shown it on there, but as all of ours are already, I've had to turn that off, but you can turn it on and off. So I turn it off and we add that vehicle onto it and save. Now essentially what would happen, it's going to be difficult for me to demonstrate at the moment, but if we were to then log in as Billy Bragg, you would see just that one vehicle, whereas us at the moment we can see all 6 of them. If you logged in, you'd just be able to see that one vehicle. So it gives you the ability to lock people down to what they see. So I mean, the main reason that most people use this for is departmentalizing. So if you've got 100 vehicles, 10 of them are engineering vehicles, 5 or 6 sales vehicles, and then you've got different people which would want to see that tracking information, but you don't want them to see all of the tracking information about the other department's vehicles. You would use display groups to segment it in that way. So it's fairly basic. Just create a group, give it a name, choose who's going to have access to it, and which vehicles are going to be in it, and then the rest of the system just works around that then. So the next section is contacts. Now the contacts are the logins. So this is where you actually set up new users. So if I was to right click and, well, this is a list of all the users currently on the system, but if I was to right click and add a new user, make this a bit bigger, what we do is we just enter the basic information about the person. So I'll enter myself on here, Mr. Russell Oakes. You can type in any username you like, or you can select one of the suggested options. Give myself a password. Select language and time zone for the user. If you change the language or time zone, then when they log in they'll see the system in a slightly different way. SMS alerts and email reports. Now if you've got any alerts set up, which is actually another one of the sections I'll come to on a different video, you'll need to configure to receive them on this screen. So send to work mobile, send to work email will cause any alerts to be sent to my email address or mobile, depending on if I've got it turned on. If for some reason I've got alerts set up and I want to stop receiving them, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can either turn off the alerts separately, or you can actually just disable the ability to have any alerts sent to your contact. I'll disable them for now because it will be easier for showing you the screen as we go through. So then we click next at the bottom, and this is where we can fill in that information. So russell.oakes@boxtelematics.com. Put the mobile number in there as well if you want. That's the information that has to be in there if you want to start receiving alerts though. So if for some reason you set alerts up and you can't work out why you're not getting any, double check that you've got the information filled in those boxes. Next we have the permissions. Now there's various permission groups which give you various levels of access to SPOTON. Administrator is the highest permission. If you give them that, they'll be able to do everything. If you give them manager, which is the next one down, they will be able to do slightly less than an administrator would be able to. A supervisor can do slightly less than a manager, and a user can do less than a supervisor. A user's the most locked down really. One thing I would say is that you only need to assign one permission to a user. So there's no need to give someone access to everything. You don't need to give them an administrator and manager and user. You can just give them just administrator. It works, it kind of cascades down. If they've got administrator, they're going to be able to do everything. As you saw there, you can just double click on one and it'll move over, or you can use the left and right arrows. There is one, the other permission groups aside, which you probably wouldn't normally see, they're just on here because it's the demo system, but the driver permission group you will see on everyone's fleet. Now the driver permission is a very special one. If you assign that to any particular user, they will have an extremely locked down version of SPOTON when they try and log in. It'll lock it down to them only being able to see the vehicles that they've actually driven and the information for them. So if you give that to someone who's supposed to be able to see all of the vehicles, they'll log in and they'll just see nothing because they might not have ever driven any of them. From a support point of view, it's a question we get asked a lot of, is why can't I see anything? And then we realise, well, someone's given you the driver permission. The one thing as well is that the driver permission trumps all others. So if you are someone that goes and gives someone everything, while having those four aren't a problem because they all include each other's own permissions. If you were to add driver as well, driver would actually trump all of the rest and lock you down to the most basic access. So be careful when using the driver permission. Only give it to people that are actually drivers who are just going to log in and want to see the vehicles, see the tracking information for the vehicles they've driven. Okay, on to the next screen. Sorry, might as well take these off. On the next screen we've got the display groups. This is where you can choose, if you're setting up a contact, which group you want them to be in, rather than having to go back to display groups, edit it and put that contact in. You can do it at the point of actually creating them. So I could put me in the test group. And then we've got contact groups, which are used for another section of SPOTON, which isn't really used from a vehicle tracking point of view. So to be honest, you can probably ignore that. Click next and you can just add some general notes about the contact. And that's about it for the creating a contact. So that's a way to create someone to give them access to any part of SPOTON. The next option down is contact groups. As I said, it's mainly used for complex alerting systems, which are rarely used nowadays because we've made alerting so easy to be used by the customer. So I won't go through that. I don't think you'll ever really use it. Driver keys. Now I've mentioned before in one of the previous videos that we sell driver identification systems for the units. If you've got one of these driver identification systems, and you'll have various Dallas keys. If you use a Dallas key on a vehicle, the unit will log it and send that information through to our system. So this is where you actually decide whose Dallas key belongs to who. You see on our screen you've got 17 keys, 16 of them are in red because they haven't actually had a driver associated with them. But the rest of the information you get for the key is what type of key it is, which you can specify, the vehicle it was last used on. So if you've got a key, you found one and you don't know who was driving that vehicle at the time or anything like that, then you can just look at here and you can see that key was last used on that vehicle and then the last time it was used. So you can say, okay, well that key was used on OY09 LHU on the 18th of the 5th. Okay, I know who was driving that vehicle on that day, so it must be him that has that key, and then you can select and associate that driver with that key. And the way you do that is to right click and select edit, which will actually change the entire thing to an edit screen. So you're not editing them one by one. It just puts you on the edit screen as a whole. And you can select the driver. You can select the type of key that they're using. I won't go into what the different types are because it's specific to the product, and if you're looking to buy it, your account manager will be able to explain that one to you. And that's about it really. I mean, you can remove that information from a key. Sorry, remove the key completely, or just remove the information. If I hit cancel. So that's it. It's a very basic screen. It's just saying this key exists on the system, is being used, who's using this key, so that the rest of the system can react accordingly, giving you proper driver information, things like that. The next section is operating hours. Now, I've mentioned this before in one of the reports I wasn't actually able to show you, but this is where you set which vehicles are allowed to drive at which times. So you can see we've got a standard operating hours set up here at the moment, which shows days 1 to 5, which is Monday to Friday. Start time is 8:30, finish time is 4 o'clock. The duration is the amount of time in between those two. And then the assets which are currently associated with it. So you can set up different operating schedules for different groups of people or groups of vehicles. So if we were to say right click and add, then there are 3 options here. I would suggest, and I will only go through the simple weekly operating hours because they will do what you need for 99% of people. If you need anything more complex, like changing depending on the time of the year, then there's other options here, but they're very, very complex. Just call customer services, they'll be able to help you out with that. So if we select create simple, we'll give it a name, we'll say sales vehicles. You can give a description, you put anything you want there. But then simply you just choose the times you want them to be able to drive. So, you know, as the standard is 8 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock at night, Monday to Thursday, 8 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock at night on a Friday. So if they're driven before 8 o'clock or if they're driven after 5 or 4, depending on the day, then you will get an alert, or it will show up on the operating hours report, which I showed on one of the previous videos. If you do select midnight to midnight, that does actually mean that the vehicle should not be driven on those days. So the operating hours schedule is nothing. So in this situation, if it was driven any time on a Saturday or Sunday, it would alert you to it. And then once you've set up the time periods you want, you can select which assets you want it to apply to. So if we just say those two, salespeople's vehicles, save, and there we go. So you've got sales vehicles there, you've got a different time period shown here, and then different vehicles as well. So that will give you the ability to populate the operating hours reports as we saw previously, and get an idea of if your vehicles are being used outside of the times that you want them to be. The last section here is calendar. Now calendar isn't just a calendar to be filled in for any old information you want to put on there. What it actually is an operating hours holiday calendar. So if you were to say there's a bank holiday when no one should be driving anything, rather than having to set up some kind of complex operating hours schedule, you can just add a holiday on here, give it a name, a start date and end date, and press OK. Now that basically makes that day, or whichever date range you selected, completely off limits for driving. So if anyone drives at any time, regardless of all those other schedules you set up, if they're driven during that day because you've set a holiday, it will show up on the report as being driven out of hours. The last 2 sections I'll show on here, the asset information, most people wouldn't use, and I'm not going to go into it because it's a little bit too complex. But the support section at the top, you've got 2 here. We'll start with my details. My details just basically shows you your login details. So you can change things like your password, etc. on here, and change any other information, your email address, things like that. So whereas we were setting up a contact before for someone else to be able to log in, if once you're logged in you want to change your own details, you do it through this screen. So we'll save that. And then you've got the messenger option. Now the messenger option actually allows you to raise an issue with your dealer, or if you are a dealer, raise it with Box. You can right click and select new, select send to, and you're going to, okay, we've got different options on here because again it's a demonstration one, but what you'll have here is the person responsible for your incidents. So if you're a customer, you'll see your dealer's contacts, and if you're a dealer, you'll see Box's contacts. So you'd select someone from here, let's say Darren, and you can give a subject, any other bit of information, and then just free text about what the issue is, and press send. And all it does is it raises an issue on our own internal incident logging system. Some people decide that they want to use it, other people are obviously happy with just sending emails and phoning us, but the option's there if you want to use it. That basically covers this section of admin. The next section I'm going to talk about is geofences, which I mentioned a few times previously, how to view them and how to set up new ones. Otherwise, thanks for watching.